Hello there everybody, Sam Strains here and welcome back to the Model Railway News. You're joining me for the September edition today, and as usual I've got an absolutely jam-packed episode for you. So settle down, relax, I hope you enjoy it, and we're going to get started by talking about Bachmann. Now, we've grown really used to seeing Bachmann make their announcements quarterly only, so 4 times a year. But recently they've started to move outside of that format, and we've seen a few announcements outside of those usual quarterly announcements. And that's what they've done this time, a really interesting announcement that's come out of the blue, and I think it's one that a lot of people are going to be really excited by. So more specifically, it's been announced by EFE Rail, and even more specifically than that, I suspect this is a Kerno product, as most of the new tooled EFE models are. So the model is this. It is an all-new tooled Adams T3 440 tender loco, which comes from the LSWR. As you can see, this is just a stunning early passenger locomotive, which was introduced way back in 1892. So this was just a soft announcement, and they're going to announce it properly, I believe, during the winter Bachmann announcements. So the particulars on price, liveries and exact specifications are still under wraps, but there is a lot that we can tell from the samples that have been shown already. So it's clear that the model will be quality, because you can see quite clearly that they have die-cast running plates, boilers, smoke boxes and even die-cast front splashers. So this is guaranteed to be a heavy model. You can also see some modern features here as well. You've got the push-together loco and tender connection, and you can see from the photos here that it's a 6-pin solution, which looks pretty good. They also say that this is going to have a 5-pole motor with a flywheel, which is mounted in the loco boiler. You can see also that this is going to have the firebox flicker effect in the cab, and the cab itself looks to be beautifully detailed, as you can see. We also know that there's going to be several different variations of this model with different chimneys, boilers, smoke boxes, etc. So we're not looking at just 1 or 2 models here. It sounds like it's going to be a pretty decent range. So these photos are of engineering prototypes, so they're not even 3D prints or something early like that. So that tells us that this project is pretty well advanced, and I would guess this has been under development for a good year or 2. So hopefully it's not going to be too long before we actually see these models, and they are going to be announced properly in early November apparently. So tune back in then and I'll talk more about the details. But yeah, this loco looks gorgeous. Really looking forward to following this project. Speaking of newly announced locos, we did learn some time ago that Rapido were planning to make a Manning-Wardle L-Class in OO scale. Gorgeous little tank engines these, but again this was just a soft announcement, so we didn't have any of the details. Well, just now the models have been announced properly, so now we know exactly what's coming. So in terms of liveries, there's going to be 8 different locomotives available in a selection of different colours and liveries, as you can see. And these were industrial locomotives, so most of these liveries are pretty unconventional. Each example is available DCC ready or DCC sound fitted, so you've got the choice there. We also know the prices now as well, and they don't sound too bad actually. So DCC ready is £127.45 at the retailers, and the DCC sound version is just £93.50 more at £220.95 at the retailers. Usually you're looking at about £100 for sound, so less than that sounds pretty reasonable, I think. As I'm sure you've noticed, there's quite a few variations within the L-Class range, but the most notable one is the 2 different cab styles. You've got the open cab, which looks really strange, doesn't it? It's just got the front windows there to shield the crew, I would guess. And then there's the more conventional cab, which is fully enclosed, both available at the same price, of course. So the details on the specs are still a little bit foggy, but we know now more than we did before. So they are going to have next 18-pin DCC sockets. Each model will have a factory fitted speaker, so it is going to be easy to sound fit these, and they will have NEM couplings. Otherwise though, yeah, the specs are a little bit vague, so at the moment I've not seen whether these have sprung buffers, firebox lighting, or even what sort of motor is going to be used. All they've said about the mechanism is that it's a high quality motor and mechanism, so I will be interested to learn more about the mechanism in the future. Rapido have also revealed samples of some of their other projects as well. The big one would be the USATC S160, and it looks like they've just received a whole fleet of samples for these. And as expected, they do look like extremely complex models with lots of variation between examples. And you can see this best by looking into the cabs. We've got two totally different cab interiors here, and the same thing with the tender fronts as well. So a very complex project, producing lots of different looking locos. And these samples are a major milestone in this project, so hopefully this means they're one step closer to actually arriving with us, and hopefully the next stage will be decorated samples. Really looking forward to seeing what these are like once they've been finished off. Another Rapido loco that appears to be much closer to delivery is the NER H-Class or the LNER Y7. Rapido have received a large fleet of decorated samples here, and they look absolutely amazing. These are such tiny little locos, yet they're totally packed with detail and character, aren't they? And even the plainer black liveries look extremely smart, while of course I think, for me personally, it is the lined greens that still manage to steal the show. They say that final assembly for these models is now taking place at the factory, and they're hoping that the models will leave the factory within the next 2 weeks. So delivery for these should be imminent. Can't wait for these. Fingers crossed they are good, and these samples do look absolutely amazing. Finally on Rapido, the other month I reviewed their new Metropolitan E-Class, which was an absolutely gorgeous model, and I still can't get over that livery. But the example I reviewed did have a lot of quality issues. And if you'd like to know more about that, I'll pop the link to my review up there. Now, Rapido were kind enough to actually get in touch with me and offer to replace that loco, and I wasn't planning to get it replaced, but since they were kind enough to offer, I decided to take them up on it. And they took my engine back, they replaced the body because the chassis was fine, and they sent it back to me. And I'm pleased to say that the replacement body is almost absolutely perfect. It is a completely different loco now. It's been built extremely well with no visibly wonky parts and only very few instances of visible glue. Far better than the original example, and I'm much happier with this. So this shows that there certainly are good examples of this E-Class loco out there, and I did get lots of comments from you people saying that your examples were perfect, which is good to hear. I also did get some comments from other people saying that they did have issues with theirs, and if you're one of those people, I would recommend getting in touch with Rapido and getting it replaced. I can speak very positively for their customer service, and I've never known them not step up to the mark and fix an issue. So well done to Rapido, and it's a happy ending for me because that replacement E-Class looks absolutely perfect. Also, props to Rapido for actually getting in touch with me and making a faulty model right. It's pretty rare that a manufacturer will do this, and yet Rapido have done this a couple of times now. So props to Rapido, it's really good to know that they care. The next update comes from Dapol, and recently they've made a lot of progress in OO scale, but today's update is mainly focusing on O gauge, and there's been a few major announcements from Dapol in O gauge. The first one is a new tooled piece of rolling stock, and it is this, the MHA Coalfish Open Wagon. The specs for this model include a die-cast chassis and underframe, sprung buffers, working couplings, and finely applied liveries. They've only announced 4 different versions at this point, and each is in EWS livery, but perhaps more will follow. The full price, as you can see, is £60 RRP or £51 at the retailers. And honestly, I think this seems pretty fair for what is a fairly substantial O-gauge wagon. So congratulations to Dapol for getting yet another announcement out there. I don't know how they keep doing it, and it'll be interesting to follow this project. They've also posted a major update on their new Class 66 in O-gauge, and to say they've had trouble with this model is an understatement. So they say that new team members have taken over this project, and they've been working tirelessly to improve and modify the previous design that they've showed us in the past. And now they're showing off a re-engineered and retooled prototype with the new corrections, which looks amazing, by the way. But there's been a complication. They were ready to go into production with the model, but then they said the factory turned around and said they now want 40% more money per unit to make them. And it sounds like Dapol are quite angry about this. And they say, to all of us at Dapol, this type of behaviour is unacceptable. I love that, unacceptable behaviour. Go on Dapol, roast your factory. We have made the painful decision to move the tooling to one of our other factories, and they go on to say that it's the same factory that made the Hawthorne Leslie and some of their O-gauge locos. So from this alone, we know that this new factory is a damn good factory. As part of this factory transfer, they have had to alter the prices, with the new DCC ready RRP being £395 or £335.75 at the retailers. So it is a little bit more expensive now than it used to be, but at least we know Dapol have really fought to keep their prices down, and they've called their factory unacceptable in the process, which I really enjoyed. And let's be real, less than 350 quid for an O-gauge class 66, which is going to be a big beast, isn't it? Really doesn't sound too unreasonable. And like I say, looking at the samples, this thing looks absolutely stunning. So once again, even with the price increases, I think Dapol are putting some other manufacturers to shame. I'm sure you can imagine which ones I'm talking about. One thing I didn't mention last time was their new shunters truck in O-gauge, and these have been announced with the usual Dapol specs of die-cast compensated chassis, full detail including sprung buffers and more, with the same prices as the Coalfish at £60 RRP or about £51 at the retailers. Again, this looks like a pretty complex model. The shunting trucks really are pretty interesting pieces of rolling stock, I think, visually interesting. And once again, great to see Dapol offering half reasonable prices at O-gauge. So lots to look forward to from Dapol in O-gauge, more updates on the way soon. Up next then, a bit of an update from Accurascale, and they've revealed decorated samples for their new 57XX pannier tanks. But not the decorated samples we were expecting. They've revealed these two in the London Transport livery, which had not been previously announced, but they're announcing them now, and they are exclusive to Accurascale. And just check out these samples, they look absolutely dazzling, especially compared with the unpainted black samples that we saw last year at Worley. Their photos also afford you a little peek into the cab as well, which appears to be fully painted and detailed. These cabs just look absolutely amazing. Desperate to get my close-up lens on the cabs and other details on these as well. Also, notice the quality of the paint on the pipes, particularly that brass colour. Looks like they've absolutely nailed that. So these really are going to be something to look forward to. They're available to pre-order now for £139.95, and I do have affiliate links down in the description. Now, they've estimated that these will arrive in Q1 of 2025. So if that's true and everything goes to plan, these are a matter of months away now, which is really exciting. So new pannier tanks on the way very soon. Can't wait to get my hands on one of them. Finally then, some news from Hornby. Now, they warned us in August that in September their prices would be increasing, and now that September has come, that has come to pass, with lots of prices across the board going up. So I thought we'd take a look at some examples just to see how this has affected their products. So we've got TT models like the Class 08 shunter, which used to cost £136.99. They now cost £149.99. And this is really sad because I bought my TT08 last year for £101.14. So the increase here is just astronomical, isn't it? I don't know how it's going to affect TT sales, I have to say. Similar sort of thing with TT rolling stock, with the new HAA now costing £28.99, up from £25.99. OO scale track has increased in price as well. We've got a set of points now costing £16.99 instead of £15.99. I remember when those used to be a tenner, so again, that's quite a difficult one to swallow. The lovely Peckett loco in OO, this used to be available for less than £100 when it was new. It now costs £139.99 RRP, up from £127.49 in August. The P2 with smoke and sound now costs £324.99, up from £294.99. And of course, when a loco costs in the hundreds of pounds, a mere 10% increase can add an awful lot to the price, as we're seeing here. And in terms of coaches, a new Mark III now costs £49.99. That's up £5 from £44.99. There are some prices that haven't been increased though. For instance, the Flying Scotsman train set still costs £249.99, which is pretty interesting, isn't it? And there are railroad models that haven't changed in price either. For instance, this, the Class 31, is still at £96.99. which again is interesting, isn't it? So sort of entry slash beginner models then don't seem to be increasing in price, which I think is smart. Obviously Hornby don't want to be turning beginners away from this hobby. It's just a shame that when those beginners decide to graduate to more serious models, they're going to be slapped in the face like a brick wall to the nose when they see the higher prices of the premium models. Anyway, in terms of Hornby updates, they've revealed some progress on a new model we haven't heard from in ages, and it's the DP1 Deltic prototype in their Hornby Engine Shed blog. They've now received the first shots from the tooling, plus a first running sample. First they show the body, which is a raw shot from the tooling, and look at what a huge hunk of heavy metal this is. I bet that body weighs a lot. But it's not just the body that's die-cast here, not just the body and the chassis that's die-cast. Looking at this photo, it looks like absolutely everything is. The chassis block, even the bogies and the base keepers appear to be fully metal, so hopefully the quality of this thing is going to be truly amazing. They also showed this running sample, which looks as though it's decorated, but they say this isn't a decoration sample. They've just painted it into a rough blue colour just to make sure it all fits together with the paint on, which apparently adds a little bit of thickness to some of the parts, which is not something I'd really thought about before, so that's interesting. But even though this is not the final colour, it still kind of gives you a good idea of what this model's going to look like, and it does look very impressive. Of course, can't wait to see the final product with all the lining and print work and such. Hopefully this will be something very special. With the recent price increases though, it is a pretty pricey boy. It costs £349.99 RRP or £314.99 at the retailers, and that's for the DCC ready model. Obviously the sound fitted one is going to be even more. So it's steep, sure, not that affordable, but it's a very high spec model, hopefully one of the heaviest and best quality Hornby models ever, assuming they can pull it off. Let's hope that they can. Finally from Hornby, in TT they've revealed painted samples of their upcoming Class 66, and I've got to say these look amazing. It's almost quite difficult to tell that these are TT Class 66s and not 001s. The detail is just that crazy, isn't it? And compared with Hornby's Class 66 in 00 scale, these look significantly better, the 00 Class 66 being very, very basic compared with these. They've displayed several of the different liveries, and it really looks like they've nailed them actually. So hopefully next stop will be delivery, and Hornby can add yet another locomotive to their TT lineup. Oh, that was a lot. I'm tired now. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That's all the news I've got for you today. If there is something I've missed, please do comment down below and I will consider that for next time. For now though, once again, thank you so much for watching. Have a great month. Now that the autumn's here, I suppose we'll be spending a bit more time indoors, and sure enough, the rain has duly started. That's strange. Just as I was saying that, I heard it patter. Don't know if you can hear that on the mic. Anyway, whatever. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, folks.